Welcome back in, everybody, to Friday's edition of Birds 365. Joined now by Ed Kracz from SI.com. Ed, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, guys.
Fall Friday.
Ed, let's get it started. Where are you on the Tanner McKee hype train, buddy? Where are you? Let me give you a scale between Joe Montana and Kenny Pickett. Where is Tanner McKee on the hype train?
Maybe in the Johnny Unitas role. And I only say Unitas because we saw his statue outside of the ball.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
last week, which is really
Johnny
cool.
U, baby.
Johnny U. But it doesn't matter what I think about Tanner McKee and Kenny Pickett or you or Xander or any of the fans that watch that game. It's going to be Kenny Pickett.
Yes, it is.
Is going to be the number 2. And, they're both under control, I think, for the next 2 years, too. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Eagles do going forward. Would Howie Roseman dare trade one of these guys? I mean, they got Will Greer into the game last night.
You don't want to go down there.
He was pretty efficient, 3 for 5, 35 yards, led him to a field goal. I mean,
nice EJ Jenkins catch with Will Greer. That was the EJ catch. It was kind of leaping, twisting grab.
Yeah, that was well done by EJ Jenkins. Tough pass to haul in, but McKee looks good. I mean, he looked good last summer too, and the Eagles still don't see enough to want to put him at number 2. But this is his second summer, I should say, where he, he's looked very capable of being the backup. But the Eagles don't see it that way, so it doesn't matter what I think. I think he should be the number 2, but it doesn't matter.
That's what I was looking for, Ed. I think he should be the number 2 too, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be the number 2. I just think he's looked better. What do you say, though, about the context of, playing versus the threes? I just think it looks like he has better talent, arm talent. That doesn't mean everything. I get it in this league, I get that. But I just think he looks more talented. But what do you say about the context of, him playing against all scrubs?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, he's playing against most of the threes. I mean, Pickett played against their first-team defense, and he had a second team.
By the way, the offensive line, and Nick said it, they did not – the pressure was – he was under siege.
Yeah.
So that factors into it from the coach's perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's something you have to take into account when you're looking at it. But I think we saw McKee last year against some first-team guys during the preseason. He seemed to play well. I think he probably gets the ball out quick. I like the way he throws the ball on the run. They do a lot more rolling out, it seems, with McKee than they do with Pickett. I mean, McKee was throwing the ball well when he would roll to his right and he would find a receiver. I think he's better at that. And that's what Pickett needed to do when he was under siege last night. They didn't get him out of the pocket much at all, which I was surprised at. They just let him stand back there. And, maybe he held the ball too long. Maybe there were receivers that weren't getting open the way they should, so he can get rid of it quickly. I think there was a whole ton of things that went into why he had 4 sacks in the first half against him. But, to me, I think McKee would be okay going against the second-team guys. I think he gets the ball out quicker, and I think he moves better inside the pocket. He can get outside the pocket quicker than Pickett, I think, can.
Yeah, I one of the funniest things, because I don't often get to see the broadcast because we're usually at the game, Ed, but we weren't yesterday. And they had Spadaro jump on there and say, "Oh, Kenny Pickett's the backup quarterback." It's like the Eagles knew what was coming and were trying to head it off at the pass. But yeah, I mean, preseason football is so difficult. And I brought up, like, why aren't people on the Joe Nada train this morning or the Thomas Booker train this morning? I get it. Quarterback is more, people are more focused on quarterback, obviously, but those guys dominated in the fourth quarter. Joe as a receiver, Thomas on the defensive front. And nobody thinks, Joe's Jerry Rice or Thomas Booker is Aaron Donald because they know they're playing against backups. Why do everybody get so hanky at quarterback?
Well, it's everybody's watching the quarterback, and the backup quarterback's the most popular guy on any football team, right? So that's what fans want to see is the quarterback. I mean, I'm on the EJ Jenkins train today.
Yeah, EJ too. EJ.
I've said, and John, I've told you this in camp a few times. I think he should make the roster as the third tight end. I think now, after what he has shown in the preseason, that the Eagles would have a hard time getting him to the practice squad if they were to cut him in lieu of keeping, an Albert O or a CJ Uzama. Neither one of those guys has shown me really anything at all to be, serious contenders for the third tight end spot, but they bring some experience, and maybe that will be the difference. But EJ Jenkins, to me, he's a converted wide receiver. Yeah, that's what he played in college, so they're trying to make him into a tight end. But I think, he certainly has the hang of catching the ball. I don't know how he is in the run game at blocking. Haven't paid a whole lot of attention to that. But, listen, to me, he's really stood out. So I'm on the Jenkins train. And you mentioned Nada, Joe Nada from Clemson. That guy couldn't create any separation at all this season, yet they kept him on the practice squad. He seems to be doing a better job at that. Even in camp, he seems to be a little bit more elusive coming off the line of scrimmage and one-on-ones and team drills and 7-on-7s. And we saw it last night. He was able to do some, run off the cornerback and stop and come back to the ball and make the catch. And it's great to see a young kid like that improve from a rookie year to his second year. I think he's done a great job at that, but is there room for him? Probably not. But maybe he's another guy that the Eagles are going to have a hard time getting to the practice squad if they were to cut him. But I liked what I saw from Nada, but I'm on the EJ Jenkins train. I think he deserves a spot on this roster.
Yeah, I thought EJ definitely looked pretty good last night. Ed, what'd you see from the linebackers last night? They seem to be dominating the conversation here all off season, after games, practices, everything. What'd you see from the linebackers last night?
Well, it was nice to see Zach Baun in a very short period of time that he was on the field make a couple nice plays, wrapping up at the line of scrimmage and making tackles for one yard gains or 0 yard gains. He didn't play very long, but it was nice to see him do that, because in Baltimore, I don't think he had his best game, but he certainly played well last night. And it looks like the Eagles are kind of committed to him and White being their starting linebackers. But Nakobe Dean and John and we talk about Nakobe quite a bit. He's really had a great week of camp. Really solid game last night. I think he led the team in tackles with 5. He did a nice job of, he blitzed on one play and was able to kind of leak out and make a tackle after – 2 Eagles missed. I think it was Bradbury and Trotter got whiffed on a pair of tackles, and Nakobe hustled downfield and made the play before it could get a first down. I loved what I saw from Nakobe, and I think the best thing about Nakobe is he stayed healthy this camp, something he wasn't able to do last year. So if he continues to be healthy and plays at this level, he could be the starter, but I think Fangio is going to rotate these guys. I really think that you're going to see, it doesn't matter who starts. It's going to be who finishes, but I think there's going to be a role for Nakobe. Trotter, I thought, had a better game in Baltimore. I thought, he did some nice things. I like the fact that he's very instinctive as a player, and that's going to serve him well. We'll see how much trust they have in the rookie to use him in key spots on the defense during the regular season. He'll certainly have a role, I think, on special teams. But I liked what I saw from the linebackers, and I didn't see anything from White, but I don't think he played very long. So, I think they're in good hands, and I think Fangio knows what he has there. He's got young, quick linebackers that he can use in the blitz game, whether it's running or passing. So I like what I saw from the linebackers. And of course, Dean and Trotter are the only 2 that are signed beyond this year. So, you'd like to see them carve out some kind of role for those guys this season. And I think with Dean, you will. Dean could be the starter. He if he continues like this, he could end up starting next to White.
Yeah, I think he's the best linebacker on the team when he's healthy, and he's healthy. So right. I don't know how long he's going to stay healthy, but as long as he is, I'm playing him. Period.
Yeah. I think playing on the outside, like off ball, like they stuck him in the middle last year. Like I don't think he'll play middle. That's probably Devin White's job. But maybe staying, kind of off the ball. He's not in the middle, of everything happening. Maybe that will help keep him a little bit healthier. And he'll have the kind of season, not many people are expecting. It's kind of surprising that so many people have already kind of written him off as a bust.
Oh my God. You should see my mentions on social media, because I said, and you get all the people who, have turned turned on him, and he's too small now. He's too slow. He's not physical enough. The guy I saw out there was running around like a madman, making plays, dominating. He's dominated the entire camp as a blitzer. He's not the best in coverage, but I often point out, tell me who the best coverage linebackers in the NFL are. The whole point of modern offense is to get those guys in space because none of them can cover. That's the whole point.
Right.
So, I mean, what are you looking for? And to me, he is by far the best linebacker on this team. And I'm very, very surprised because I have a lot of respect for Vic Fangio that maybe he's just pushing him. Maybe it's motivation, and maybe he'll be there week 1 against Green Bay. But I would be very disappointed if I were an Eagles fan and they didn't have their best linebacker on the field against the Packers. And I don't think that's going to be the case, but I will rip Vic if he's not on the field. I will. Be prepared. Be prepared, Ed.
I think he'll be on the field. I think, like I said, even if he's not starting, I think they're going to do, they're going to have him in some packages, and, he's going to play, maybe 30 snaps a game. If he's not starting, I think there's going to be a role for him. I think Bond and him are interchangeable. And that's what I kind of like what I've seen from this defense in terms of, how versatile it is. Like, Vic seems to line guys up in different spots. He gives you different looks for defenses to think about. They're going to be a difficult defense to solve schematically for opposing offenses, just because they have some guys that can play different spots, and Vic lines them up in different spots. Even on the defensive front, he'll line up Carter outside or Milton Williams outside. He just is very good at giving you different looks, and I think he's figuring out his personnel, and he likes the versatility. So I think we're going to see that from the linebacker core. I think Trotter could come in and play a little bit of a role too. I mean, I think he's going to rotate these guys in.
Damo mentioned that as well. It's typically not a rotational position, but Vic will go outside the box, so maybe he does play all of them.
Yeah, I think Wade will be. He'll get the lion's share of the snaps. I think he'll be, your 98% of the snap type player in the middle, and I think he'll wear the green dot. And you don't want the green dot to rotate in too much, but I think that off the ball linebacker, you could even use Zach Bond as an edge rusher at some point, I think, and put Dean on the field next to White as a linebacker. These are the kind of looks that Fangio is going to give, and like I said, I think it's going to confuse some offenses, and they're really going to have to study the Eagles' defense during the week to kind of figure out how they can attack it.
Ed, what do you think about the safety position? Something me and John have been talking about a lot. Where do you think they are in that room? Do you think it's something they need to add a player? Everybody was pumped for Justin Simmons. He's now gone off the market.
I know Bleacher Report was high on Justin Simmons to the Eagles. I thought they had the inside track, Ed, but
that's what I was led to believe too. I read many a story on Justin Simmons being the perfect fit for the Eagles, and I think the Eagles were probably in the mix. I mean, they were kind of in the mix for just about everybody. So.
I don't think they were. They were in the mix for Xavier McKinney, but they were not in the mix for Justin Simmons.
That Atlanta defense is going to be pretty good now. They added the Judon, the pass rusher from the wing.
Matt Judon.
They added Simmons, and the Eagles play. That's going to be their home opener.
Atlanta's sneaky good. If Kirk Cousins is healthy,
right,
which is a big if. But
and if they got to play well in prime time, that's a Monday night game, and we all know how Kurt Simmons is in the prime time.
They got a sneaky. Speaking of Matthew Judon, the Patriots. I don't know if you saw, but you know how those goofy broadcasts, the local broadcasts, they interview the players preseason games. And Ramondre Stevenson, who by the way I like him. He runs hard.
Yep.
But they were interviewing him, Ed, and they were asking him about. It was the guy who just left, and he thought he was talking about. The interviewer was talking about Bill Belichick, and then he clarified that he was talking about Matthew Judon, and Ramondre Stevenson said he's moving on to better places. That's a tough blow when your own star player is talking about another star player who just left, and he said, "Oh, he's just moving on to better places." Better places.
Yeah, that's
That's
an
crushing.
interesting comment. What did he was he asked about the Eagles safeties though? What he thought of the Eagles safeties? Ramondre Stevenson?
The Eagle safeties. I'm sorry. I
No,
just
no,
found that
that
funny. But the
you
Eagle
know, I
safeties, it's interesting to me because you know CJ and Reed are locked in. And then after that, it's like Bradbury did not play well last night. A couple
no,
tough tackles everybody's picking up on. Avante had the big interception, but he's not really a safety. Sydney's coming back, but he's not going to be back probably until early in the season. And then you bring in this Caden Stearns, who Vic knows from Denver, and he's limping, Ed. He didn't look healthy at all. You saw him at practice when he was there.
right.
So a bunch of guys who aren't healthy, bunch of guys who you don't know if they're going to be here. The depth is an issue. Can Tristan McCullum sort of sneak in there? He's been one of the best Eagles players, in my opinion, in the preseason.
Yeah, I like the way Tristan McCollum has had, the camp that he had, the games that he's played here against the Ravens and Patriots. I think he can figure out a way to make this roster. I mean, Bradbury was, like you said, he took a step back. That walk-in touchdown Drake May had, it looked like, I don't know if it was Jalix Hunt that didn't seal the edge or if it was Bradbury's man, but, Bradbury bid on a play fake that was, it was a very weak play fake, but yet Bradbury bid on it. So, I'm not sure what they're going to do at that position. I think it's all about versatility. Again, Maddox, I think, is, he's going to be a safety, and I like Maddox in that role. He played there as a rookie. I think he had to step in, filled in a few games. He was good at it. I think he's shown some good stuff. Had that really nice interception in the end zone last night. So, I think Maddox will be there. I think McCollum could be there. And then you have, like you said, Reed and Chauncey at safety. And then Cooper DeJean, we don't quite know where he fits. He talked and, he was activated this week. Did some stuff against the Patriots in the joint practice, still limited. And he talked about just kind of being a cornerback. That's where he worked in the spring. So I don't think they're ready to put him at safety yet, but I wouldn't be surprised when he returns if he gets some looks back at safety. Caden Stearns, he failed the physical with the Panthers, I think, before the Eagles.
Carolina, yeah.
So if he's going to do anything to help this team, it's not going to be in Brazil, or I wouldn't think it'd probably be, as the season goes on, if they keep him around on injured reserve. But it's an interesting decision what they're going to do at that spot. I like McCollum. I think Maddox is good there, and they're probably your two backups. Andre Sam, I thought, was the undrafted free agent. I thought maybe he could play his way into a role, but I don't think he has. He's ready for that. He'd be a good practice squad guy. And I don't know what's out there on the free agent market. Maybe better, like what could they bring in? Or I guess once guys start getting cut at the end of the month, you bring them in, but then you're behind the 8 ball. You're bringing a guy in who had no camp with your team.
I don't think they're going outside the organization. It's just a matter of, sort of how Howie manipulates the 53. You talked about tight end, for instance, said, CJ Uzama's a vested veteran, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. So you could do that wink deal with him and say, look, CJ, you're really going to be the third tight end. We're going to elevate you, but we're worried about losing EJ Jenkins on waivers. So you keep EJ Jenkins, you wink CJ Uzama, you bring him back to the practice squad, you elevate him for the game. And then 3 weeks later, if you need him, somebody usually gets hurt, then you elevate him at that point. A lot of strategy to it with the practice squad now. Same thing could happen at safety. You could start Sidney Brown on the PUP list. You could start Caden Stearns on injured reserve. And you could keep Avante. You could keep Tristan McCullum. You could keep James Bradbury. Anybody you want. The practice squad has made things much easier. And the fact that you can put veterans on the practice squad and try to keep those younger bodies. And we'll see. That's the point. That's what happened with Eli Ricks last year. The Eagles were concerned about losing him on waivers, and they felt they had to keep him. Where are you with Anaya Smith? Because they don't like to cut their draft picks.
No, they don't. He made a nice play on the 2-point conversion pass, went in motion and kind of separated. And, it turned out to be the game-winning points, the 2-point conversion.
That was a good rub route by Jacob Harris. He cleaned people out. And he
yeah.
did it subtly. They never do it subtly. He did it subtly.
Yeah, whatever they did that worked. But, they talk about the punt return game. It'd be nice to see him catch the ball. I mean, it just seems like he wasn't in position to field a punt and let it bounce. And, that's not a good sign. But I think they'll keep him because he is a draft pick. But I just don't. That would mean probably keeping 6 receivers. And that's a little much. So maybe they try to get him to the practice squad because he certainly hasn't shown enough, I think, that another team would be interested in him to claim him. But I haven't liked what I've seen, to be perfectly honest, from Ainias Smith. I think I need to see more to keep him around. But being a draft pick could offer him the protection to make the 53.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on that train since early. I'm like, I think Howie kind of pigeonholed himself at wide receiver a little bit because you have to keep Wilson.
Yeah.
And in theory, you have to keep Smith at the time. And Smith has played so poorly, maybe that shifted things. But you really don't want to be forced to keep 2 day 3 draft picks at the same position where you're kind of weak at depth-wise as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And John Ross, to me, I think, is making steps to taking a roster spot. So, he might be a receiver that they keep over Smith. I mean, he certainly showed up in the kick return game last night. He averaged 34 yards per kick return. And, that's certainly a skill set that's going to be looked hard at this year with these new kickoff rules. And I think Ross showed that he can handle that job. So he may have taken a step toward this roster. And then, that pushes Smith down even a little bit further. So you're right. Howie has pigeonholed himself. 2 third-round, third-day picks at receiver, and can both make the team. I don't know. Wouldn't be the first time they cut a draft pick. I think back in 20. I think when they drafted Blake Countess and Jalen Mills late on the 3rd day, I think it was just them trying to figure out who's going to win the job there, and they ended up cutting Countess. Maybe that's the case.
And they brought him back twice, so that's always one of those things where they'll probably bring him back at some point if nobody bites. But yeah, Nice hasn't had a good camp.
No.
Unfortunately, CJ Gardner-Johnson will tell you that very vocally.
Yeah. Well, maybe listen, with a lot of these players, it's just confidence, especially rookies. You come in and you wonder, hey, do I really belong here? And Smith, I talked to him after the Ravens game, just one-on-one in the quiet of the locker room. He was still sitting on his stool, and it's a confidence thing with him. So maybe this 2-point catch that he had, this 2-point conversion reception he had last night, maybe that gives him a little boost. Maybe he feels like, yeah, hey, I was open, I was able to get there, and I caught the ball, and I scored the game, the winning points in the game. So maybe that will help kind of launch him a little bit. We'll see this week in camp. The Eagles have the full week of practice leading up to their final preseason game against the Vikings on Saturday. They're going to get a lot of good work in, as Nick likes to say.
A lot of good work. And that Eagles-Vikings game, that's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah. I wish J.J. McCarthy was healthy. I would have liked to have seen McCarthy get a few reps, but of course he's on the shelf. And listen, could Nick trade or not Nick? Could Howie Roseman trade?
No.
Pickett or McKee?
I've already shut that down. Please don't. They're paying Sam Darnold $10 million. They were always going to start him. He was always going to be the bridge quarterback. J.J. McCarthy wasn't going to start the season as the starter. Now, ultimately, they're going to be a bad team, and I thought they would get to JJ pretty early in the season, week 5, week 6, something like that. And that changes the trajectory. But the whole point of getting rid of Kirk Cousins is they don't want to pay a quarterback. They got their bridge quarterback. It's not Rick Spielman.
But look at that depth chart. Look at that depth chart after Darnold. If Darnold gets hurt, I mean, who do they have? I mean,
Nick Mullins, the great Nick Mullins.
Oh my goodness. Yep. Yeah, that's a ticket to the top 5 pick in the draft.
I'll tell you what, Nick Mullins last year played quite a bit, and he's not bad. His problem is as a backup, I'm talking.
Yeah.
When he was here, because if people remember, Nick Mullins was here. He was coming off a shoulder surgery. He was not healthy. He threw for over 300 yards a couple times last year as a backup. Now he turns it over too much. That's the problem. If he can but there aren't too many backups that can sling the ball like he can. So no, they're not concerned. And by the way, the bigger part is the Eagles don't want to trade Kenny Pickett. He's here for a reason. 2 years, cost-effective backup. That's what they want. They want him. I'm sorry.
They have that in McKee, though, too. 2 more years at a cost-effective price. Cheaper.
I'm going to go to my buddy Les Bowen because Les has a tremendous sense of humor. And I wish I would have thought of it first, but Les does a good job with that. This is the sort of things fans like to go nuts about. Talking about Tanner McKee. Helps pass the time during the dog days of August. Is Tanner McKee the victim of grave injustice because he looked good against a real bad team's deepest reserves and camp bodies? Obviously, yes. Let's march on NovaCare. Les Bowen, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it's not just Thursday night's game with McKee. It's a body of summertime work now for him. He looked good last year.
He was 6 of 16.
Chant it in, Ed. I'm with you, Ed.
Yeah.
He was 6 of 16 last week in Baltimore.
You let him do a touchdown drive, though, right? He did put a touchdown on the board. Same thing Pickett did. By
the way, the Eagles like Tanner McKee. I'm just saying, Les pointed out, real bad team, deepest reserves, camp bodies.
But listen, getting back, Howie, look, he's good at parlaying these quarterbacks into draft picks. You got Will Grier. I'm not saying Will Grier's any great shakes. He's probably better than Nick Mullins.
Nick Mullins is Johnny Unitas compared to Will Grier.
I disagree with you. I think Will Grier is serviceable. And listen, he's the emergency guy. If you get to your emergency quarterback, you're in bad shape. That's if they were traded.
Will Grier is here because he carries Doug Nussmeier's coffee to the meeting room each and every day. And he picks it up. No, Will's a nice guy. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, Will's only here because Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier think he's got a future in coaching, and he's a very smart guy and he knows the offense. And there's nothing wrong with that. You need a camp arm, but he's a camp arm.
Yeah, well, we'll see. You never know. Don't underestimate Howie pulling a little rabbit out of his hat. We've seen it before, and it would certainly be a surprise. But hey, if they feel like McKee can be the 2, or they don't need McKee and they opt to trade him, I think he's got some collateral there. And listen, McKee or Pickett, whoever is the third team guy, is the emergency quarterback. He's not going to play this year.
Well, hopefully
he's in that role,
and you'll never have to know. But I think the Eagles are in good shape. I think they have a good backup quarterback and a good third-team quarterback. I think they have a very good quarterback room.
Yeah, right. But you can only play Hurts. You hope Hurts plays all 17 every single snap, and you don't get to see that. So why not trade one of those backups if you can, if you're Howie? Why not trade Pickett and put McKee in there? McKee's cheap for 2 more years.
He values, he doesn't want to give up on the season if the catastrophe happens.
Plus, he loves Pickett. He loves Kenny Pickett. He's loved him since he was at Pitt. Loved him in the draft. I was told he thought he was the next Justin Herbert. Coming into the draft.
He doesn't have that arm.
No. But Herbert, Herbert's pretty accurate. But we'll see.
Herbert's really. I was just talking about his 40 of 47 game last year. He was 40 of 47 in one game last year. When they were blitzing him to high heaven. That
was with Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
Checking it down. I know you're a big fan of the check down.
I am a big fan of the check down. I love an offense built on the check down. I love it. I love it. It's my favorite.
Jab, jab, punch, Johnny Mac. Jab, jab, punch. Ed Kracz, thanks for being here today, man. We appreciate you joining us.
At Kracz, make sure you read Ed on Sports Illustrated, si.com/NFL/Eagles. And
thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Ed. Talk to you, man. See ya. There's Ed Kracz joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Ed Kracz. I love talking to Ed Kracz on the shows. He's a funny guy, Ed Kracz. He's one of those guys that's just funny. He doesn't try and tell too many jokes or anything. He's just a funny guy. So I love getting him on.
He's witty. That's the key. Les is witty. Good sense of humor at Eagles training camp.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, John, where are we? Got 3 minutes left in the show. What do we got for the Eagles coming up now? Preseason game number 2 is in the books. They're 2-0, Johnny Mac.
2-0. And I'm going to make a bold prediction. They are going to finish with a undefeated preseason. And that is going to mean absolutely nothing. But, they're going to finish it off. They're going to practice. They're back on the practice field Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So we'll have a night show Monday because they're going to be on the practice field in the morning. And
everybody hear that night show on Monday. So we won't be live in the morning on Birds 365. We'll have a nighttime 6 to 8 p.m. edition.
Yeah, and then a week from Saturday is the final preseason game, and the Tuesday after that is the cut to 53, what we were talking about a little bit, some interesting decisions. Guys like Joe Nada, Thomas Booker making it difficult for Howie Roseman, Tristan McCullum is in that. And that's what you want to do as a deep reserve. Make the decisions a little bit more difficult. But, I'd say 45, probably more than that. The coaching staff knows where they want to be at this stage as far as that 53-man roster. And we'll see if somebody can make a late case against the J.J. McCarthy-less Vikings. But you're going to see a bunch of backups in that game. Bunch of guys on the back end of the 90-man roster.
Yeah, definitely. Just a bunch of guys. We got one more super chat, John, on our way out the door. You take leads with Brown, Smitty, and Goddard. You keep leads with Saquon all season, point blank period. Eagles win Super Bowl 59. Covey, Super Bowl MVP. Turn me up. Angel, that's a good point. That's what Johnny Mac was saying. Get the lead with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
That's exactly what you're trying to do.
And
I don't think Britton's going to be the Super Bowl MVP. It's obviously going to be the quarterback, or occasionally you have somebody else who's, maybe got a 3 touchdown game or somebody has 3 sacks, maybe the occasional defender. Even if he returns a punt for a touchdown, they wouldn't give him Super Bowl MVP.
No,
unfortunately.
Angel, I love the super chat. I appreciate the support, but I'll agree with Johnny Mac. Britton Covey will not be your Super Bowl 59 MVP. But anyway, Angel, thank you for your support.
Might help you win the game.
Yeah, he might. Special teams played a big role in our loss in the Super Bowl in 22. So, there is a role for it, and it does matter. Thank you to Angel for the support. Thank you to D Love for that super chat. Thank you to Suplex City and Big Fish Little Boat, both 4 super chats today. So thanks all of you guys for being supporters of the channel. It goes a long way. So we appreciate that. Appreciate all of you guys in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Good week of shows this week, Johnny Mac. We'll be back for 2 short shows tomorrow and Sunday. We'll do a 30-minute or 30-minute football 24/7 after the practice. But good week of shows, my man. Eagles got a win. They got the joint practice under their belt. We'll catch you on tomorrow. All right, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, let's do it. Long stretch coming up. Back at it after a little bit of respite while they were in Foxborough. So still not over. Training camp marches on.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. We will catch you on Monday. Appreciate everybody being here. Kirsten, you got to check out the first hour and a half. It's a great show today. So make sure you go and do that when we wrap up here. Johnny Mac, good show, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hit that like button on your way out.